In chapter 13 of Lingua Latina by Hans Orberg, in Pinsum C, questions 2 and 4 cause my students trouble. Perhaps they've bothered you as well. So, question number 2 is A quo Januarius nomen habet? A quo Januarius nomen habet? By whom, a quo, by whom does January have the name, basically? By whom does the month of January have the name? Or where does the month of January get its name? That's really what Mr. Orberg is asking us. So we'll come back over here and do this in a minute, but let's take a look at the English answer. So January is named from the Roman god Janus. Actually, in English we would probably say January is named after the Roman god Janus, but this is kind of the answer Mr. Orberg is looking for in Latin, so we're going to use sort of Latin words, Latin terminology, Latin word-for-word translation before we head back over to the other page. So January is named from the god Janus. January is the subject of the sentence. It's in the nominative case. Is named is the verb. Named is the main verb. Is a helping verb. And somebody else did the naming. January didn't name itself, right? So somebody else did the naming. That means that this verb is a passive verb. Passive verbs cause my students problems. There's part of the trouble right there. And it's named from, preposition, from whom? From the god Janus. The god is the object of the preposition. Janus is really an appositive that is pointing back to renaming the god. It's named after the god Janus or named from the god Janus. And this whole thing is in the ablative case. That, of course, is an article adjective. So let's diagram it, give a pictorial representation of the sentence, and then we'll go back over and give the Latin translation. So first we'll make a main line and divide it. We'll put the subject on the subject side. January. January is named. And then the prepositional phrase actually will go underneath the verb. January is named from God. The article adjective just goes underneath, from the God. And then an appositive always goes after the word that it's renaming, from the god Janus. And we'll just put it in parenthesis right there. So January is named from the god Janus. Now back to translating this into Latin as we answer this question here. So, to respond to this in Latin, we would say Januarius. The Romans didn't have a J. Januarius. So January. And we're going to say is named from the Roman god Janus. So we're going to say Januarius a Deo, because this is in the ablative case, right? Because of the from. So really we're answering the a quo here. A quo is in the ablative case. A Deo is also in the ablative case. Let's get rid of the parentheses. Januarius a Deo. Now, if we're going to say from the god Janus, then Janus is also going to be in the ablative case. So this is going to be Jano. A Deo Jano. So Januarius a Deo Jano, and then we are going to make this passive. So named in Latin is nomina is the root that we're going to use. I suppose if you wanted to say he named somebody, you would say nominat, which is where we get the English word nominate, actually. It's but this is a passive verb. And there's a mnemonic device that I constantly use with my students to get them to remember how to translate a passive verb. Usually we're dealing with third person singular or third person plural. And I ask them, who is able to make this verb passive, guys? And they always respond, you are. And that little trick often helps them, at least with a third person passive. So, Januarius a Deo Jano nominator. Januarius a Deo Jano nominator. January is named from the god Janus. And in case you don't know, our word January does come from the name of the god Janus or Janus. Janus was a Roman god. He was the Roman god of doorways, so he could see both sides of the door at the same time. He could see the outside of the door and the front of the door. He could tell what was going on in the future and in the past. And if you didn't know, he had a face on the front of his head and a face on the back of his head. And he was the god of beginnings and endings, which is why January is named January. It's the month of beginning and the month of endings. The old year is over and a new year has started. Okay, the next one is basically the same question, and this one also trips up my students. A quo mensis Julius nomen habet. So, the 6th month of the Roman calendar, hang on a second, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, 7th month, sorry, of the Roman calendar was July, and the name of the month was actually Julius. And so the question is, by whom, a quo, is the month of Julius named, or from whom was the month of Julius named? So, let's go over to the next slide. We'll figure this out. The month July is named from Julius Caesar. Again, I'm using sort of Roman word structure here. Month, subject of the sentence, nominative case. Which month? The month July. That's in a positive, pointing back. Actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just put it in brackets like this, pointing back to month. The month July is named. So someone else did the naming. Named is the main verb, is a helping verb, and both of them together, they're a passive verb. That's important because passive verbs trip my students up. The month July is named from, preposition from whom, Julius Caesar, object of the preposition from Julius Caesar, or after Julius Caesar, goes into the ablative case. That's important. All right, let's diagram this, and then we'll translate it on the previous slide that we were looking at. So, we have the month. Probably didn't leave myself enough room here. The month July. Oops. The month July is, article adjective. The month July is named. And it is named from. Sorry about that. It is named from Julius Caesar. Okay, we're done. The month July is named from Julius Caesar, or named by Julius Caesar, or after Julius Caesar. Okay, to respond to this one in Latin is a little tricky because Julius Caesar's name is in third declension, and that's where my students typically fall apart. That and, of course, the passive verb. So, let's see. I'm going to grab the translations from one of my students. So here we go. Mensis, this is an actual response from one of my students. Mensis, the month Julius. Mensis Julius, the month Julius. Nominator. Probably be best to put that at the end, but anyway. The month Julius is named. That's a passive verb. The month Julius is named. Now that's going to push the next word into the ablative case. So we're going to write Julio. Probably should have used an I there, sorry guys. Giulio Cesare. Because Caesar is a third declension noun. And let me give you just a quick example of what that looks like. So if we take a third declension noun and we put it in the nominative, the genitive, the dative, the accusative, and the ablative, and let's take Caesar, right? Caesar, Caesar. So to say of Caesar, you would say Caesaris. To say to Caesar, you would say Caesari. To say something happened to Caesar, you would say Caesarem. And to say by, with, or from Caesar, and to use the ablative case, and since pushes the next word into the ablative case, you would say Giulio Cesare. And there's the there's the third declension ablative singular ending right there, a Cesare. So, mensis Julius nominator a Julio Cesare. Better Roman word order, we would put that verb at the end. Mensis Julius a Julio Cesare nominator. Mensis Julius a Julio Cesare nominator. Okay, I hope that helped. Check out DwaneThomas.com if you want to learn more about Latin and Greek, and be sure to subscribe to my channel below while you're here anyway. Take care, my friends.